obstruction. Earlier, I spoke with two members of those House committees leading the impeachment inquiry about today's events. Eleanor Holmes Norton was on the Oversight Committee, and Raja Krishnamoorthi, who sits on the Oversight as well as the Intelligence Committee. Congresswoman Norton, the White House is clearly refusing to cooperate, stonewalling at the very least. What now? What are you and your fellow Democrats going to do in response to this letter?
This is not unexpected, Anderson. When the White House stonewalls, they commit a grievous error. You'll notice that in an ordinary trial, if you subpoena somebody or if you're called for a trial and you don't appear, then the presumption is against you and you could be found guilty. It is the president's prerogative not to appear, but it's not our prerogative to say because he doesn't appear there must be nothing here. Remember, Anderson, we already have a great deal. We have two whistleblowers whose comments have been seen by the IG as credible, and yet we're trying to abide by the process, trying to give the president every opportunity during the investigation, but he can't stop the investigation by refusing to cooperate with the investigation.
Congressman Krishnamoorthi, the White House in this letter is essentially daring Speaker Pelosi to hold a vote to open a formal impeachment inquiry. Do you think that should be the next step? I mean, it's not required by law, but if that's what the White House says the sticking point did, would that make a difference, or do you think they would come up with something else?
They'd come up with something else, and I don't think we should take directions from them as to how to investigate the actions of this president. That letter that you referred to started out with a very faulty premise. On the second page of that letter, it claims that this phone call that happened on July 25th between President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine was, quote-unquote, completely appropriate. That's not what the majority of Americans think. And that's why public sentiment has shifted so radically in favor of conducting this impeachment inquiry. Now, we have to do it in as unbiased a fashion as possible, and we have to do it expeditiously. But any stalling or delay tactics in the face of what the majority of the American people want, which is an inquiry to proceed, would be, in my opinion, very inadvisable at this point.
Congresswoman Norton, if it comes down to a choice between going through the court process to try to enforce subpoenas, to try to get these people to testify, or just going ahead with whatever evidence has already been gathered and what's out there based on the president's comments and the rough transcript, not even the full transcript of the conversation that took place between the president and the president of Ukraine, going ahead and sticking to an end of October date to actually bring this to a vote in the House, which would you choose? I mean, does a vote in the House that hasn't gone through the court so that you haven't gotten other people's testimony, is that legitimate enough for you?
As expeditious as courts can be, they could not get through all the subpoenas that the White House is using as a delaying tactic. So I don't think we should fall for that. I think we should proceed with the evidence we had. Now, if we didn't have good evidence, it seems to me a case could be made that you just got to stop. But we have two whistleblowers. We've got a lot of evidence from those who have come forward. Now they're telling us they're not going to let anybody come forward, and I think it's because they see we have evidence they want to contribute to it. And I think that the House of Representatives, which has an obligation to proceed with an impeachment inquiry, cannot let the party on the other side of the impeachment inquiry keep it from moving forward. So I think you're going to see us keeping that date. And another reason we need to keep that date is, Anderson, we haven't been sent here just to do impeachment. We've been sent here because we have passed bills that are of great importance to the American people. And we intend to keep plowing ahead on those issues from gun control to climate change and not let impeachment be all we do in 2020.
Congressman Krishnamoorthi, I mean, do you agree with that? And I mean, House Democrats have tonight issued a subpoena for documents and testimony from Ambassador Sondland, next Monday for the documents, next Wednesday for the testimony. Assuming the White House doesn't let him testify, do you wait for this to go through courts, or do you stick with an end of October deadline or whatever the deadline may be?
I'm not aware of a deadline for this inquiry. I think we have to do it properly. That being said, if anybody blocks testimony or refuses to produce documents, that should, one, count as evidence of obstruction of the inquiry, and then two, it should be almost an admission that the blocked testimony would actually corroborate the whistleblower's allegations. And in this case, it's easy to see why they don't want Mr. Sondland to testify. He was the one that actually called President Trump right before his telephone call on July 25th. And then in between July 25th and late August, he had various conversations, including, according to the Wall Street Journal, with Senator Johnson, where he basically said that military aid was being conditioned on these investigations being manufactured by the Ukrainian government. And so that's the type of inference that we would glean if Mr. Sondland doesn't testify. So it's actually to his advantage to come forward and cooperate as opposed to going the path of obstruction, which is what, of course, the White House wants.
Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, appreciate it. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, thank you so much.